Welcome to ACF Chefs Forum. Now, more than ever, and especially during this challenging time, it's important for culinarians to connect, to share, and to offer inspiration and mentorship, which is exactly why we're excited to have industry experts here with information just for you, the leaders of the food service industry. We appreciate you all tuning in today, and I hope you're ready to talk trash. Today, we're overjoyed to shine the spotlight on food service experts who will share information and best practices for reducing waste in support of your environment and your bottom line. Before we begin, as a note, we'll be taking questions from you, the viewers, as we are able. Please use the chat function to collaborate with other viewers and to pose questions to today's speakers. So let's get the discussion going in the chat by telling us where you're tuning in from today. I'm Jackie Pressinger, American Culinary Federation's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I'm excited to learn along with you about how we can work together to reduce food waste. So I'm honored to introduce our moderator today to kick off the presentation. Cassie Hoover is Nutrition and Sustainability Manager with Nestlé Professional, and at this time, I'll pass it over to her to introduce today's presenters and begin the session. Thanks, Cassie.
Thanks, Jackie. As Jackie said, I'm Cassie Hoover. I am the Nutrition and Sustainability Manager for Nestlé Professional in the US. And what that means is I get to work with all of our brands, including the Miners brand, to bring to life how we want to execute sustainability, how we want to communicate it. And we're really excited to be here with you today as a partner of ACF and hosting this webinar. The other thing that's a little bit unique about what we're bringing today is you'll see in a moment when I introduced the panelists that we have two of our Nestlé experts on the line as well as panelists. So the idea here is that we can talk about food waste and our opportunities to reduce it all the way from manufacturing on through strategy and then into execution with the excellent panelists that we've gathered here today. So I want to start by just talking a little bit about why this is an important topic. I think many of you here will already be invested and know how important this topic is, but it's always, I think, helpful to revisit some of the really dramatic statistics in this area. So in 2019, about 35% of all food in the United States went unsold or uneaten. Most of this became food waste. It either went straight to landfill, it was left to rot in the fields, it went down the drain. And of course, that's a staggering number, right? 1/3 of all food. And there are a number of different, all really important reasons that we should care about this, right? So one is a really basic financial reason, right? If you buy food, if we buy food, and then it never makes it to a consumer, right? That's money that we're leaving on the table. There's an environmental reason, right? So we use water and fertilizer and gas to run equipment in the fields to grow the food. And if it never makes it into someone's belly, that's an enormous waste of resources. There's the complementary environmental impact of food when it goes into a landfill. It's generating greenhouse gas emissions as it decomposes, which is an increasingly critical issue, right? We're in a crisis with climate change right now that we probably all want to do everything we can to help prevent. And then the third really important reason, of course, is a societal reason. So according to Feeding America, during the COVID-19 pandemic, about 42 million people have experienced food insecurity. And so we have food that we're sending to a landfill and we have hungry people. I think that's a really obvious solution that we all should be thinking about when it comes to food waste. And I think what's amazing with this topic is it's not controversial, right? We can all agree this is a really important topic. And so we're glad you're joining us today and are really looking forward to some of your questions and hearing from you. So what we'll do is I have two poll questions that I'll launch in a moment because we want to get to know you as an audience as our panelists are giving their responses. And then I'll introduce each panelist one by one and we'll start with the questions then. So let me launch the poll. So here is the first poll question. So I gave you a couple of reasons. There's a couple more on here, but we're really curious to know what's the top reason for your interest in food waste reduction. Is it managing costs? Is it sustainability? Is it addressing hunger? Mandates from your organization? Expectations from customers? And I can't see that anyone is responding. Jackie, can you tell? I just want to make sure that I'm not doing this incorrectly.
No, it looks like it's working. So anyone who's tuning in, if you would like to, oh, saying the poll is closed. That's interesting. Not saying that on our side. So let me see if we can relaunch that one.
Thanks, Jackie, for your help. My first slate snafu, and I'm only a couple minutes in.
It looks like we're receiving an error, so I'm not sure if that's on Zoom's side. So maybe if you'd like, we can do the second one and see if that one's going to work.
Yeah, can you do that one for us?
Of course.
So the second question was to learn a little bit about where you are in your food waste reduction journey, right? So you're joining us because you're interested. Is it that you're just starting out, you're sort of intermediate, or are you an expert? And should we get your information for the next one of these to have as a panelist? And here, this one is working. Okay, so good. If you want to tell us in the chat why you're interested, I think that would be helpful to know still. But thank you for answering this poll. It does appear to be working for us. And I'll just give it maybe a couple of more moments. Oh, good. Okay, so in the chat now, people are responding, right? There's a lot of interest in sustainability and carbon. Yes, okay, good. All sustainability so far. I love it. Okay, cool. So I will share the results of the poll for those that were able to answer now. So you should be able to see now that most folks are sort of in an intermediate place. So they're probably looking for some tips to refine their program, but we do have a significant, about a third of folks are beginners. And so we'll have some sort of tips, I think, for sharing and starting on that journey. So what I'll do now then is go ahead and introduce our first panelist. So Chef Anthony Verona is the culinary director for University Hospital Health System with Sodexo. Chef Verona started cooking at the young age of 7 with the help of his inspirational mother. He began cooking professionally at the age of 18 and soon after landed his first chef position at a prestigious country club in Southwest Florida. He received his culinary arts degree from Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island, and was trained at the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park. Chef Verona is a culinary adjunct professor at Cuyahoga Community College as well. After culinary school, Chef Verona traveled the country working in country clubs, private restaurants, and hotels, learning from master chefs and honing his culinary skills. Driven by his passion for food and farm-to-fork mentality, Chef Verona's cuisine reflects simple but elegant flavor combinations. So thank you for joining us. Anthony, please tell us a little bit about your relationship with food waste in your current role, and feel free to highlight a couple of accomplishments that might inspire the audience.
Sure. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody and the panelists. So, my current role is the culinary director for 14 hospital locations. And, I manage the food waste program as well as many other things, but the food waste program is one of the things I manage. And that pertains to our food sustainability program, as well as, any training, as well as food procurement, deployment, and implementation of any systems that we move forward on. Food waste communication, we do monthly calls, we talk about food waste, and all the food waste data that we analyze is a big part of my job. So I don't think that we can do a lot of our efforts without having a lot of data to refer to. So we use a couple different companies that aggregates all of our data, so we can look at that and see how we're doing. Specifically, we use a program offered by Sodexo called Waste Watch, powered by Lean Path. It's a great program where we weigh all of our waste, all of our back of the house food scraps, leftover foods, and so forth. And that really has shown to be a great asset for us. We've really decreased. I think later on in the presentation, we're going to talk more about some data numbers. But so those are a couple things that we do a large composting program at the majority of our hospitals. So we compost all of our pre-consumer foods. So all our food scraps go into compost. So basically, the Waste Watch program as well as the composting program go hand in hand. Somebody goes over to the scale, they weigh their waste, they then dump it into the compost bin, and then the compost bin is picked up and taken to a landfill. A cool note: about 3 months ago, we actually went to the compost facility and saw what they do, and it's pretty amazing. Actually saw it, I'm like, look at that, that looks like our compost, that's a watermelon or whatever, and they were dumping it into the area where they dump it, and big mounds, and saw it from a watermelon rind all the way to how they made dirt. Obviously that takes some time, so that was pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure they're much more talented at compost than I am. I watch mine and it looks like a watermelon for forever. So I'm clearly doing something wrong. It's good to have professionals on it.
Yep, they do a good job.
So thank you. I'll move on to our next panelist and introduce Alison Trinkle. So Allison is the VP of Culinary Development and Supplier Diversity with Chartwells Higher Education. She has more than 25 years of experience in restaurants, hotels, and contract food service, where she has been able to make sustainability a priority. She has been with Chartwells Higher Education for over 11 years, and in that time, she's been able to grow her career from a unit chef to a vice president. In her current role, Allison works closely with a team of talented chefs and ensures they have opportunities to grow within the organization as future culinary leaders. Supplier diversity is very important to her personally, and she has the ability to seek business opportunities with minority, women, disabled, and veteran-owned businesses to expand and diversify Chartwell's portfolio of vendor partners. I feel like that's a whole nother webinar that I would like to attend, but please, Allison, tell us a little bit about your relationship with food waste in your current role and maybe highlight a couple of accomplishments for us.
Absolutely. So in my current role with Chartwells, prior to the VP role, I was the Director of Culinary Sustainability. And in that role, I was played integral part in working with the chefs, and much like Sodexo and the chef prior, we have programs designed to collect, weigh waste, and collect data points that we can share with not only our associates to get them engaged and empower them to be better, foster, a better relationship with their waste in the kitchen, but also it allows us to tell a story with our clients, not only just clients at the unit, but also our clients as in our guests who are students. Because I work in higher education, and all of our students are very much involved in sustainability and want to see where their food, first they want to know where the food comes from and what do we do with the waste once, if there is any that's left. So I get to see the channel of waste and where it goes. And we've, worked on some great programs. We've got great partnerships with Food Recovery Network, where we're actually trying to repurpose food and feed homeless people or food insecure people. And then additionally, we also do composting. Some of our schools have composters at the unit specifically, or we have services that come and collect from the compost. So again, the relationship is just, making sure that either if it's food that can be reused, that we're getting that into the hands of hungry, insecure people. And if it's not, that we're weighing it appropriately and communicating and telling that story back to our guests and clients.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that telling the story, right? I think we do so many great things in a lot of elements of our role, both on the manufacturer side, but then also on the sort of the serving side, and telling the story is sometimes we forget because we've done all the work. So that's a really important element. Thank you. Our next panelist will be Rob Marasco. He currently oversees culinary development for Sodexo North America as Senior Director of Culinary Development. His team manages new concepts, menus for all of Sodexo's market segments, including all new ingredients and recipes. Rob has a flair for creating authentically inspired food for his customers, but after nearly 40 years in the food service industry, his experience extends beyond culinary delights, including purchasing and supply chain, consumer insights research, and project management. As a leader, he inspires his team to find innovative solutions to address customer needs, both now and in the future. This has been a clear strategic focus on sustainable eating, plant-powered cuisines that customers are looking for that will drive environmental improvements for Sodexo and client partners. Rob has experience in all facets of food service management, including experience at noted establishments such as the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and the Capitol Hill Hilton, as well as nearly 25 years with Sodexo, most of which he spent in the university segment. Welcome, Rob. Please tell us a little bit about your current role and how you deal with food waste in that, and maybe share a couple of accomplishments.
Sure. Thanks so much for being here. Wow, I don't know what else to say after that introduction. I don't know where you got that from, but that was pretty nice. So yeah, as Cassie mentioned, I lead culinary development for Sodexo here in North America. So that means I work with our corporate services business, our universities, our airport lounges, all of them, right? And I think for what we do, managing waste is super critical from the very beginning of whatever we're creating or developing, right? And I think a key responsibility of all the chefs and dietitians on my team is to make sure that our chefs and operators have everything they need in order to be able to do what they need to do for their clients and our customers, right? As a concept we're creating, 2 ingredient intense will result in potentially heavy waste. Have we evaluated all those ingredients to be processed in-house versus not against all the different waste factors? Should we be purchasing pre-cooked or pre-cut items? These are some of the things that we've got to consider and that we do consider when we get into developing menus and recipes. And I think when I think about what we're doing as an organization, and I think we're going to hear a lot of this today, it's really, I'm really proud of the fact that we've got really strong company leadership on this topic, and we're aligning and creating processes that'll positively impact what Cassie said at the beginning, right? This whole 1/3, which is staggering, of what we manufacture and produce goes to waste. And I think that's a really good place for everybody to start, is to start to look at that as a goal. And we know, Anthony mentioned Waste Watch powered by LeanPath. It's amazing. We know just by paying a little bit of attention that we can reduce waste by nearly 50%. And for the the bean counters, no offense, that's like 3% in food cost, right? We know just by paying a little bit of attention that we can impact that in such a positive way. And at the end of the day, it's a journey that all of us, we're all going to have to start if we haven't already at some point. So super excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It's telling the story to the bean counters as well as the students. There's an
I'm a bean
opportunity
counter too, so
to tell that story all around.
Talking to myself.
Thank you. Our next panelist will be Troy. You'll be up. So Troy Chapman is a safety, health, and environmental manager for Nestlé Professional Factory in Cleveland, Ohio. So that factory makes many of our miners products. So that's the relationship there. He's a graduate of the Ohio State University with a degree in environmental sciences. He has worked in environmental health and safety for 11 years and has been with Nestlé for the past 5. Troy has a strong personal interest in sustainability, so the ability to work for a company that is leading by implementing sustainable practices throughout the supply chain and production process is truly rewarding. Troy, tell us a little bit about your relationship with food waste in your current role, and maybe give us a couple of highlights.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Yeah, my current relationship with food waste from the manufacturing end is minimizing the waste in our operation, ensuring that we have good communication of our waste to those people that are generating it, whether it's in the operation or in procurement end. We're constantly searching for the most economical and environmental friendly disposal methods. Hopefully you're all familiar with our products, but our factory, my factory specifically, produces culinary bases, sauces, gravies. So any of the ingredients that are going into those products and those products themselves, the finished products themselves, need to have a planned disposal route in case anything goes wrong during production, whether something's off spec or something expires. So also all Nestlé factories have a zero landfill mandate. So all of our materials have a second chance at providing a useful benefit, whether it's through compost or as a fuel. So I have had the pleasure at Nestlé of personally assisting 2 of our facilities in getting to that zero landfill goal.
That's great. Thanks, Troy. And our final, last but very, very much not least, panelist will be Pamela Kehn. So Pamela is the Safety, Health, and Environmental Specialist at the Nestlé Professional Manufacturing Facility in Cleveland, Ohio, which again is where many of our miners products are made. Pamela has been in the safety, health, and environmental field for 6 years with a degree in environmental engineering. Currently, she works to educate employees on the importance of environmental stewardship and helps guide the facility to find ways to reduce their environmental footprint. So welcome, Pamela. Same deal, yeah? So please tell us a little bit about your current role and maybe highlight a couple of accomplishments on your side.
Sure. So I currently work with Troy at the Cleveland facility where we produce a lot of the LJ Minor products. My biggest goal is to always make sure people understand our mission from the moment they step into the door. So, helping them understand, yeah, this is a job, this is where you're getting paid, but ultimately we are looking to be environmentally friendly, to reduce our footprint, to be sustainable, and to help them feel empowered, right? If they don't feel like they have a voice in it, or they don't feel like they have a way to contribute to the system to help us stay green, then they won't bring up any issues to us at all. So that's a lot of my focus. But being with Nestlé, it's great because we're always striving to do more. So even like looking at our packaging, like how can we make that more sustainable, going to more recycling friendly options as far as plastic. And then also too, just for, as we said earlier, the bean counters, I like to help our management see, where can we save money by being environmentally friendly, right? Like if I capture this at the end of the process, can we do something else with it? Or by sending it to compost, can we reduce our overall cost and help bring the facility and the business around in that way? So that's something I love to do as a fellow number person myself. So I'm always happy to meet other people that do that. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about it in more detail.
Awesome. Thank you, Pamela. It's great. Okay, so you've met our panelists. You've heard a little bit about their background and some accomplishments. I'll remind you again, if you have your own questions, like something burning you've been wondering about, please go ahead and throw that in the chat so that we can ask our panelists and get their expert opinion, since we have them all with us today. But I'll start with a question for those folks that are sort of at the beginning of their journey, right? We had a little chunk of them, about a third of folks that answered the poll said they were at the beginning of their journey. So maybe Anthony, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about how you started the program that you currently have and where some of your biggest challenges have been in sort of starting the current program.
Well, I can't take credit for starting the program, but I can give you a little quick story. So one of who started the sustainability program here at University Hospital's health system was a pediatric physician who was actually dumpster diving in the back of the main campus. She already had a sustainability background, but she was also a physician. And as she's dumpster diving back there, she found a lot of stuff. And it wasn't just food. It was, blue wrap and things that hospitals produce that they just toss in the garbage. She was kind of upset. She went to the client at the time and said, look at all this stuff. So long story short, that's basically what started the sustainability movement here. She then brought me in as the food person. This was years ago. I don't know, back in 2000, maybe 10. She brought me in as the food person. And that's kind of how it got started. We started just doing little things here and there, buying some antibiotic-free meats. I know this isn't about waste, but waste kind of came down the road, introduced me to a local company here called Rust Belt Riders, who, a lot of people from Cleveland probably know them. They started picking up compost on their bikes. Now they're a huge facility. Brought those guys in, got a contract with them, started composting. Really the food waste aspect really just started doing the food waste watch just started pretty recently, maybe about a year ago. But that's kind of how it got started. I think did you ask me what our biggest challenge, one of our challenges was?
Yeah.
For me, it's about getting buy-in from senior leadership. Not everybody has that passion for this. It does cost some money. So, composting, people think, oh, they just pick it up and it's free. No, it's, I'm not going to give you the numbers, but it does cost us money to have them pick up the compost. And, there's been a lot of cost cutting things, and luckily that hasn't been one that's been cut. Our waste program obviously costs money for the service and for the machinery and things like that. And that hasn't been cut. So to be honest with you, it's getting some of the other leaders, especially when you have leadership changes, to get them kind of involved. But you know, how we've mitigated that a lot is you know, as Allison talked about, bringing the data in and saying, hey, this is what we've done so far. This is what we've accomplished. This is what we can do in the future. And having those monthly meetings with them. We do have sustainability meetings monthly with some senior leaders. And I think that's helped out a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Regular meetings and having that data to support. And even, you know, I love the idea that a passionate individual can sort of change an entire organization's approach. So that's really inspiring.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe Troy, I wonder if you would also have a comment on this. You mentioned that you helped 2 facilities sort of achieve zero waste. So I'm curious, like, if you have any thoughts on sort of getting started or sort of how you assess the current program and figure out what else you're going to add.
Yeah, so when I just got started, we didn't really, when I started at Nestlé, we were just moving to the zero landfill requirement. And the decision came from the top, and so we kind of had to make a quick decision. We all had short timelines. All facilities were mandated that this is what Nestlé is going to do. So we had to move forward with that quickly, and it was a matter of reaching out to we already heard about Rust Belt riders, so the people that are doing it in the area. And again, they were very small at the time, but then they had connections. So reaching out, understanding who's already doing this. You know, we had to kind of hit the ground running that way. So yeah, we had some of our challenges. You know, we had the short timelines, like I said, but then making sure that we had the appropriate streams identified. So do we have vendors that are capable of taking it? That was probably our biggest challenge. And then making sure that we have the buy-in from the people on the floor. They're going to be the ones that are making it successful. They're going to make it or break it. So do they know the importance and keeping, you know, their nitrile gloves and their packaging material out of the food waste? Are they able to do that? Do they have the right containers? So it was yeah, when you're setting it up, you make sure you're setting it up from start to finish, that you understand how is it really going to be laid out in your kitchen or in your factory to facilitate it and make it easy. And the easiest choice is the right choice. Well, the food waste goes in the scrap container as opposed to the trash can.
Yeah, so a lot of information gathering at first, and then sort of figuring out where your biggest areas of opportunity are, and then going after them, and education, of course.
Yeah, always educating the people that are generating it, right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I did see we got a question in the chat, so I'll flip to that for now. And it's maybe Allison, I'll ask you to comment, and then if anyone else wants to. So the question is, when you do composting, do you do just fruits and veggies, or do you give them the meat products as well?
Well, in our process that we're doing, we do everything. And it just depends on who's picking up the product. Some farms want specifically just vegetables only. But again, it's just reaching out and making that connection to see what they're willing to take in their compost. But most of our units across the country, they're putting everything in the compost bin. And we divide ours out with pre-consumer and post-consumer, so we can really get buy-in from the pre-consumer with our associates in the kitchen on training and educating on what goes in the bins, and then post-consumer waste coming back from students and guests. Again, it's a system that works twofold, so it takes participation in both. And then again, working with your local, whoever's picking up your compost, to see what is allowable in their compost.
Yeah. Thank you, Allison. And I saw a lot of head nodding, so I think that must be the same across many, right? It's really much can go in it, and it's really dependent on your local provider. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Thank you. Oh, a follow-up question to that. How difficult or easy has it been to find commercial composting vendors? I don't know, Rob, I actually see you large on my screen. Do you have a thought on this?
I don't know why I'm large on your screen. I know I would definitely put it from my understanding of what's going on nationwide, and I know Anthony's had some good luck where he is in the country. My understanding is if I had to rate the entire country on ease, I'm going to put it like probably pretty difficult, right? To find someone depending on the geography, locality, the jurisdiction where you happen to be. Whatever it is, it could be packaging, it could be food. We always talk about compostable, recyclable, and you have to look at that wherever you are in the country. What's the thing that you can make happen, right? And that can actually happen for you. So I know, like where I am in the DC metro area, it's doable, right? You can compost, you can make it happen. But that's not the same everywhere, right? It's very, very challenging. I would say it's in the difficult range for sure.
Yeah. Any tips from anyone in the group on finding folks and how that how to make that process sort of how to start that process?
I have some tips. I can kind of chime in on that one. So
Great.
yeah. So not everybody likes to do this, but even if you reach out to just do your basic Google searches, right? Like, hey, who's got composting in the area? And even if you start with people like Rust Belt Writers and they tell you, hey, your waste isn't exactly what we're looking for, they're always willing to send you to somebody else, right? Their goal is to be sustainable and to compost and to recycle. So even if they can't do what you're asking them to do, they've got somebody else. So, prime example for me, if I'm struggling, I reach out to another facility who will then say, hey, try this vendor. If I reach out to them and say, would you be able to take our content? And they say, your stuff's too salty, but this person could do that for you. Or, hey, your stuff has too much sugar. These people can do that instead. And then we'll kind of shift gears going on that end. Other times, even your local EPA rep, they're always willing to help too. So we do that all the time. We reach out to them, say, hey, we've got this new product. It has a byproduct of this. How do we compost that? Or is there another route we can go as far as recycling it or getting it to be reused further down the line? And if you've got other branches or chains as well, other kitchens, reach out to them. You never know. Maybe they've got something that they can share with you as far as what they do with waste.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah, this is such a local space and really relying on your networks to understand what's available in your area and how to solve that problem, I think is a great suggestion as a place to start. Let me see okay. I thought a question that might be interesting for the audience is to understand the impact of COVID-19 on your waste reduction efforts and understand if there's anything you're doing differently. So maybe I will call on Allison to comment on that first, and then we'll go to others.
Absolutely. Well, COVID-19 has really put a big damper on our composting and recycling just because the lack of product. Supply chain has been crumbled due to COVID-19. So it was really hard for us to get, one, it's hard to get products, but two, we were seeing, like styrofoam was coming back into the marketplace, and that's, definitely not things that we want to happen, but it's just supply and demand, just products not being available out there. We focused a lot on back of the house procedures and increasing the food donations because the food insecurity piece was huge, and tried to decrease production as much as possible. So we were limiting waste. And then we were minimizing the range of ingredients we use. So we really streamlined down our menus to use like a core group of items, just so that, it was easier to procure it, and we could put in a national vendor request for the products, and then we were maximizing our opportunities for cross utilization. So, I think that's kind of some of the pieces that COVID-19 played into, and I look forward to the days when we're back to prior to COVID, where it was easier to get things through supply chain, and we could really focus more on the biodegradable and post-consumer or the compostable products that we need on campus.
Yeah, I agree. I look forward to the time when I don't think, okay, probably people are going to want to know what's the impact of COVID. So, and to get all of the sustainability efforts back on track. I wonder, Anthony, would you have any builds or anything that you've done differently in your facility that you'd want to build on?
Yeah, what I can say about, it's a little different than Allison because I'm in healthcare. So we were still, obviously sales were down, but patient volumes were up. So we were still pretty busy. again, retail volumes were down, and the impact was just less. We were buying less. At one point we were down 40% in sales, and now we're down 18% in sales in retail. So we didn't really see a huge impact other than just less compost, which a little bit good on that. On the other side of the waste, the sustainability efforts, actually our sustainability percentages went up due to, as Allison said, we changed some menus, and a lot of the items that we changed, people were looking for meat entrees and heavier things during COVID, because I think that they just wanted more comfort food. So we kind of, unfortunately, but in a good way, took away some of the healthier stuff, because people were working a lot of hours and they wanted to eat some kind of unhealthier stuff. And all of our meats are pretty much we have 9 SKUs, 10 SKUs that are antibiotic free. So our antibiotic free percentage actually skyrocketed because we were selling a lot more of meat options. So on the sustainability side, percentages are up. But yeah, I just looked at our compost numbers the other day, and comparative to well, it's almost been 2 years now. So maybe back in 19, for that month it was, or these months it was down, but that's about right.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder, Rob, if you have any builds and things that you changed as you were thinking about designing recipes to go out for others.
Yeah, it's funny. Allison kind of touched on it, and I want to reinforce what she was saying. I think, everybody, it's been transformative, right? In many ways. But the interesting thing is, I don't want to say there's anything good about COVID, but there has been some positives, right? Like we had to optimize what we do, right? We had to, we were, and maybe that forced us to do something that we maybe should have been doing anyway, right? Do we really need 10 different kinds of turkey, whatever it is, right? Do we really need that, or can we get better at that? Then when I think about what we're doing on site and what we've all probably done and created, right? Everybody's doing meal delivery and ghost kitchens and services through apps and all these things. That's pretty amazing, right? And COVID kind of pushed that. And when I think about waste, I really believe that, we have to be more efficient on site. We have no choice now. There's zero choice. We have less staff. We got, more customers. They're all coming back. It's such a challenge. We've got to be more efficient. I'm very curious to see in a month or two, when we start to get really good numbers from our partners at WasteWatch that Anthony mentioned, what does that look like, right? We get our numbers every month from them. I want to see what that looks like. Are we getting really better at waste, or am I way off in thinking that we're getting better just because we had to?
Yeah, interesting. I think that to your point, right? It'll be really interesting to see what ultimate permanent changes COVID will have brought, and the sunny side of like, okay, now we're aware of how much packaging, for example, comes with takeout food, and like, does this incite us to then want to change behavior in a way that we would have just kept on keeping on if it had never happened? So,
well, I wonder if I may. I think it's sort of in the topic, right? I mean, Anthony brought up the comfort thing, and what I'm sure we all have seen it, right? The way people are eating. But the one thing is, anything in this world of sustainability, right? Whether it's plant-based foods or waste or whatever it may be, that interest from a consumer perspective, you can talk to anybody and that does this stuff, Data Essential, friends of ours, and all those, that has not waned at all, and in fact it's gotten more intense. So that's kind of a good thing too, right? It's a little more focused. Customers care about it more now than ever, so that's good for us, right? For what we want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I think maybe let's switch to a question around best practices on engaging stakeholders and employees. And maybe I'll call on Pamela to start this one off. Do you have any best practices you think people should know about in this area?
Sure. So what's really nice about our facility is, and we love to stress this, is our facility is pretty much a massive kitchen. Like, people hear, oh, you're in food manufacturing, it looks like a factory. It's actually a really, really scaled up kitchen. So for us, it's really cool to, one, as like I said, as soon as I get somebody brand new in the door, hey, you're my new process chef. Listen, here's some things that are going to affect you from a sustainability standpoint. So getting their buy-in that way and engaging them there. That way, they understand their importance in the system and understand like, hey, when you see something new, bring it up. We're giving you a new product. What do you think? Is this okay? Is there some waste? Is there something we need to address? On a greater scale, like a chef in a kitchen, we start very small. It goes from bench testing to a trial product to a small production kitchen to our massive scale to us, right? So looking at that, kind of like everybody else has said, from the beginning, see what steps are going in, what ingredients are going in, and kind of assess it from that point and get people involved from the beginning. So we call it our MUV team. Nestlé loves acronyms. So that is our material usage variance. So what that means is we get a product in, we weigh everything from start to finish. If we notice that there is a large, missing piece, or if our weights are off, we then go back in with a group of employees, cross-functional. You've got our process cooks, you've got our blenders, you've got our even our controller. So going back to the numbers people, they're all in there, right? So they can assess the problem, take a look and see what can we change, and then go back through. And so measures, right? We track all of this. We see where we are, we look at how we can do better, and we help the people understand that how they affect the measures. So for me, that's the best practice I can tell you, right? Start small and then make it so that people can see it and relate to it. And also while you're doing this, like people were saying earlier, think about your packaging, right? Like that's a big hitter coming up now. We want to make sure we're using products that have recyclable packaging. So like our stuff, you clean out the cup, it's a recyclable cup. So keep that in your consideration too when you're going through this process.
Thanks.
My stuff.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Anthony, I wonder if you have any builds on that. I think when you and I were talking, you were talking about sort of employee engagement and maybe have some best practices.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at my second screen here because I have a list of best practices that we're doing currently. So, creating the buy-in from all, and that's with talking to the staff. So training them, getting the buy-in from the general managers at each accounts is very important. We've done a lot of goal setting. So Lean Path in that system has ways to set goals for specific items, categories, and things like that. We have adjusted some job flows and patterns of management around Waste Watch because if an employee was supposed to do something at after the lunch period and they were supposed to take out the garbage or whatever, but now they need to take 5-6 minutes to weigh the waste, we've changed some of that. One of the biggest things we have best practices really concentrating on our overproduction, because that's the main factor in our waste is our overproduction. It's throwing away 30 chicken marsalas or just the overproduction. That's the number one waste factor in our area. So we use a robust production system at Sodexo, and we try to utilize that as much as possible to limit the amount of overproduction by looking at our product mixes and things like that. Just a couple other things real quick. I think it's good is there is some what we don't want to do is make it a punitive thing for people to, I'm weighing 20 pounds of meat here today. We don't want to make it a punitive thing for them because, we're relying on the staff to measure this. The good thing about this Waste Watch program is we can really drill down and see who's weighing it, when they weighed it, how much they weighed, and things like that. So we don't want to come back and say, hey, John, you threw away 20 pounds of meat today. Why is that? But we just educate, re-in-service, and talk to them about it, because the worst thing you can do is make it a punitive thing, and then they're just not going to do what they do because the manager can't be there every second of the time. So those are just a couple best practices that we do across the system.
That's great. Oh, Rob, would you like to add something here?
I raised my hand. Yeah, I think when you talk about stakeholder, and I love what everybody was saying, it's amazing. But I think when we talk about stakeholders in our space, I think we all, Allison, Anthony, and I, we all work in this non-commercial space. It's a big part of our business, right? We have a unique advantage, I think, especially in this space, because our customers and our clients, right? They either eat with us every day, or in some cases, like universities or seniors, they live with us, right? Every day, all day, especially now that they're starting to come back in universities, those kind of things. So they have it's kind of like their home, right? They have a vested interest in this that goes beyond sort of the commercial space. We might visit a restaurant once or twice a week, right? This is an everyday thing where it really cares. And when you get into, somebody mentioned it earlier, post-consumer waste in this environment, and these, some of these all-you-can-eat environments, the universities, I'm looking at you. You gotta really pay attention to that. And so we've done weigh the waste programs, all these things. Again, can't be punitive, but getting aligned with your client and your customers at the site is so important, because they're going to want to share in the benefit of that and the goodwill of that, because they're a part of it, right? It's not just they come here once in a while to eat here. They're a part of it. They're a part of that community. So I think it's an important thing we can't miss.
Yeah, that's great. Great build. Thank you. I think maybe we have time for one more question. And one thing I was interested in learning a bit more about, Allison, you mentioned in the beginning the importance of storytelling and how you tell about what you're doing to your diners. And I wonder if you could share some best practices in that sort of space, sharing some of what you do there.
Sure. So we've had a couple of things that we've got waste warrior programs where we really get our students and our guests involved, and we'll do something similar, like the gentleman said, the Weigh the Waste campaign, where we challenge them. We'll start a week out at the beginning, and we'll give them what the weight was from the prior week, and we give them a goal. I mean, if they do a food reduction or a waste reduction that week, whatever is reduced, we'll either give that in a monetary donation or a food donation to a local food pantry of their choice. So I think that helps with the buy-in from the students. And then conversely, when we do it back at the house with the associates, we do the same thing with reward. If you can, prove to us week over week, you can do a reduction in waste, then we give them some monetary incentives for that. I think both of those have to work together, because you can't have pre-consumer waste and not worry about the post-consumer waste. So they both work in tandem. And I think, like you said before, it's really about engagement and getting in there. And because I think everybody wants to know, like, why is it important? But I think when you tell those stories of why it's important, when you give those staggering numbers about how many people are hungry, I think numbers tell a story that is relevant to our students and guests, as well as our associates. And then you have to empower them to buy into it and be a part of something that's much larger than themselves and bigger than the job that they're doing every day, which is, just being a good steward of planet Earth.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I think I don't see any more questions in the question box. If you're typing one very fast, get it in there, because I think what makes sense to do now is to just do a bit of a round robin. And if there was something that you had wanted to share with the audience and you didn't get a chance to, please do that now, or just share us a final thought. So I think we'll start with Rob. Can you go first for us to share your final thought?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really neat time, right? And if you're a chef, you've probably heard of the things I'm going to say, right? Ugly foods and ugly crops, and you've started to hear, maybe you've learned. I've met with a bunch of people. We've dabbled in zero waste recipes, and that's really amazing stuff. And seeing that start to explode and the innovation in that space, I think that's where we're going to have some ownership in it, right? But my advice to anybody that hasn't gotten started on this journey, or maybe they're in that beginner stage, or they're an intermediate like me, whatever it may be, start with something, have that conversation, especially if you're in the non-commercial space with your client. It could be something small like trayless dining and that university resident dining, whatever it is, pick something that you can start on. And by all means, you have to make sure you create some kind of mechanism to measure it, right? It shouldn't be punitive, as what Anthony said before, but some kind of measurement, so you can all kind of get into and share those successes, because it can really become celebratory with your client, with your customers, and with your staff as you start to head down that path. So start small, wherever you need to do, and try to measure it any way you can.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Troy, could we bounce to you for your final thoughts?
Yeah, very much agree with Rob in terms of it's exciting to hear about forums and such as this, where the conversation is much more public. I'm excited for it to become even more mainstream, and that we're sharing those recipes and ideas and planning tools like the app that we've heard about, and also the composting opportunities. So who is doing this well, and what resources can we flex, and menus, and who can we reach out to understand who we can learn from. So I'm excited to hear this continue. Obviously, I have the environmental background, so I'm interested to see it continue to grow, become a mainstream discussion where everyone is frequently discussing, okay, so I want to find a way to find a second life for, products X, Y, and Z. And I'm always a big proponent of making it visual. So the one thing that, I've had the unhappy pleasure of showing my coworkers in the factory is, a picture of a 4-foot pile of rice, and say, hey, our process messed up and we generated this in very short order. So making it visible, and whether it's through infographics or the pictures of our mistakes, so that way people understand that their actions have an impact. The one thing that we're looking to do in our cafeteria right now is, our factory compost. That's all a big operation where we send all that out. But what we want to do in our cafeteria is the small scale. Start getting the people to put their plate scrapings into a 5-gallon bucket, right? And report that out regularly, and say, hey, this is how much pounds of waste we generated last week versus this week. And, let's set goals for the future. So I definitely want people to talk about food waste, not as a loss, but as something that has a future and a second life.
I love it. Huge opportunity. Thank you, Troy. Anthony, can I go to you next?
Kind of what Rob was talking about was, starting out small, but I would assume since it's ACF, we probably have a lot of chefs on. And I think the one thing, and I'm a production guy, I think the one thing that everybody can do, you might not be able to say, hey, I'm going to start with sustainable packaging, or, you just may not have the cost to buy something like that. The one thing you do have control of as a chef is how you produce the food and how much you produce. So, kind of having some analytical thinking and looking at what you're selling and saying, hey, I don't need to produce 20 of these today. Maybe you can find out ways how you can, prep it to order. But, and you're purchasing as well. A lot of times we just buy too much stuff and it goes bad. A lot of times we buy pre-cut vegetables when we really don't need it. We have the staff to do it. Maybe not now, but there are times where, do we need pre-cut peppers? We can buy a fresh pepper and cut it. Maybe onions. I get that. That's a little, you're making, 30 pounds of soup or 30 gallons of soup. But I would think that's the best way for us as chefs to manage food waste is watching our production, watching our leftovers, watch our purchasing, and have that analytical thinking of looking at how much we're selling and equate to what we're producing.
I love it. Very practical. Pamela, can I come to you for your final thoughts?
Sure. My biggest thing is don't feel like there's no options, right? Reach out. There's going to be somebody out there that can help you. Like I said, even if it's like, hey, I'm going to look this up on Google, local composter, and you reach out to them and you say, hey, what can we do? Don't be afraid to ask them, right? Or even if it's your trash, whoever's picking up your garbage at the end of the day, say, hey, I want to do better. What can we do? Do you have contacts? And if you've got the opportunity, some of our factories even reach out to local farmers, right? Cycle that stuff back in. It goes in as feed. It goes back to the food chain and it helps get more food to everybody else. So, reach out to others, talk to others. And like I said, just get that engagement. Those are really the big things for me that, I wish other people would do more of so that they can also do what we've been doing. And I really just look forward to all the new technologies and innovations that's coming, you know, being able to break down food waste with plants, you know, algae, things like that, even cleaner options that's going to go to fuel, or, you know, new ways we can cycle things into feed and composting. You know, there's always an opportunity, and I'm truly excited to see how far it goes.
Awesome. Thanks, Pamela. And Allison, can you wrap us up with your final thoughts, please?
Sure. I mean, again, it's going to go back to storytelling. I think personalizing it and showing examples that people can visually see. I think that's been a key to us. Like an example at NYU last year during one of the welcome backs, we eliminated a plastic bottle. And then we wanted to visually show like how many of those bottles in a height of a building were saved. And it was like 65 buildings. And that really resonated to the students and our clients. And that's something that statistic still gets thrown out all the time. So I think when you can personalize it and really put it back to something that will get your stakeholders vested, you should have some, you know, good ideas for how you can eliminate some waste on your campus. But just start small, seek to find resources, and, you know, give it your best shot.
I love it. That's a wonderful wrap up. I hope all of you audience members sort of join me in a virtual clap for our excellent panelists today. Thank you so much for giving your time and sharing your experiences and your advice. Thanks for the great questions to you and the audience. And I'll hand it back over to Jackie to wrap us up, I think.
Well, thank you so much. And I want to echo what I'm seeing in the chat. This discussion was very informative, and I'm feeling very inspired myself. Another big virtual round of applause. Thank you to Cassie and to all of our panelists. We really appreciate you taking the time to share these important food waste insights with our ACF community of culinary professionals. So from education to healthcare dining, independent restaurants to food manufacturing, it's clear that we can all do our part to make a difference. Of course, a huge thank you to Miners for bringing us this presentation, and we'll send all of you tuning in the recording of this presentation and hope that you'll please share with your colleagues to help spread this message. Also, please be on the lookout for a survey that you'll receive in the next day or so, which you'll need to complete to earn your CEH. We also hope that you'll join us for our next webinar, which will be September 8th, as we'll learn more about the top 10 trends in healthcare food service and senior dining. For more inspiration for culinary news or to register for upcoming webinars, please check out our site, wearechefs.com. On behalf of the ACF National Office, thank you again to Miners for this opportunity. Thank you to our panelists and to Cassie, our moderator, and thank you for joining in today. We'll see you soon.